This video is sponsored by Cool Stuff Inc. with free weekly content and free shipping on orders over $150. You can save 5% site-wide by using the promo code MTGMudsta. If you're looking for a direct way to help the channel, please consider joining my Patreon and becoming a member of the generic Goblin Gang.
Hey gang, and welcome back. In today's game, I'm joined by Seb, Maxim, and Felix. I am playing my Lucea Kane deck, keeping Mana Drain, Rampant Growth, Polluted Delta, Forest, Altered Ego, and a Roiling Regrowth. Seb is playing Sythis, keeping 3 plains, a Forest, Savannah, Aetherflux Reservoir, and a Jukai Naturalist. Maxim is playing Sauron, keeping Underground River, Mountain, Island, Pongify, Silver Falls, Apprentice Necromancer, and a Cavern Horde Dragon. Felix is playing Sméagol, keeping Forest, Swamp, Evolving Wilds, Uruk-hai Berserker, Carrion Feeder, Tireless Tracker, and a Courser of Crewfix. Seb wins the die roll and starts us off. Seb plays a Savannah. Maxim plays a tap Sulphur Falls and passes. Felix plays Evolving Wilds, cracking it and looking for a basic while passing to me. I've got a Forest return, which I use to cast a Sakura Tribe Scout. Seb has a Forest, and pays a white and a green for Sythis. Maxim plays a Luxury Suite, and brings out Apprentice Necromancer. Felix has a Forest, paying 2 to go cast 3 visits, and he goes into his library to find an overgrown tomb to put into the field tapped. I follow a very similar example, playing a Hinterland Harbor, and then paying 2 for a Rampant Growth. I go search for a basic, and I pass my turn after that. Seb has a Wolf Willow Haven, which comes in and enchants one of their lands, drawing them a card and gaining a life from Sythis. They then tap the land to help cast Argothian Enchantress, and pass. Maxim plays an Underground River as his land for turn, and then hits Seb for 1 with the Apprentice Necromancer. Felix plays out a Courser of Crewfix in his main phase, revealing a Forest off the top. He then plays a Swamp, gaining 1 as it comes in. He then casts Carrion Feeder, and passes. During his end step, I activate my Scout to put out an Izzet Boilerworks, and as it enters, bounce a land back to my hand. I draw, and play a Mountain. I tap enough for Magus Lucea Kane, and moving to combat, put her trigger onto her, giving her a +1/+1 counter, and passing. Seb plays a Stetson Champion, and they have so much draw now. They then play a Jukai Naturalist, drawing 3 cards and gaining 1 life, not to mention adding a +1/+1 counter to the champion as a result of the enchantment creature. Seb then passes to Max. Maxim plays a Swamp, and then taps 4 mana to cast Languish. All creatures get -4/-4, which deals with the entirety of the board, and after that, he passes his turn. Felix plays a Forest, and then pays 3 for Sméagol, passing back to me. I play as tap Steam Vents, and recast Lucea Kane, passing through my phases to give her the +1/+1 counter during combat. Seb plays a Plains, and then casts Exploration. They then play another Plains, and pass to Max. Max plays an Island for turn, and taps 4 mana for Relic of Sauron. He then taps it to cast a Tormenting Voice, discarding Cavern Horde Dragon as part of the cost, and then draws 2 cards. Felix plays out an Uruk-hai Berserker, and gets tempted by the ring. He has Sméagol become the Ring Bearer, and this mills Seb, who just hits their top card, which is a Forest. Moving to combat, Sméagol then hits Max, and Felix passes after that. I play a tap Botanical Sanctum because I've got so many lands out, and I then move to combat to give Lucea Kane another counter. I then move to my end step, and during it, Seb flashes out Dictate of Karametra. Seb casts Sythis again in their main phase, and then plays Eidolon of Blossoms, drawing a card and gaining 1 from casting it, and then draws a card as it comes in. They then play a Canopy Vista, and then a Rites of Flourishing, gaining more life and drawing more cards. They play their second land for turn, and Seb then casts a Cleric class, gaining 1 life and drawing 2 more. They then cast a Sanctum Weaver, this time gaining 2 life because of Cleric class, and also drawing 2 cards. They then move to cast an Ancestral Mask onto Sythis, which I stop with a mana drain. They still get their life and draw a card, and with nothing else, pass. Maxim draws his 2 and plays a mountain. He then pays enough mana for Sauron, making an Orc army with 5+1/+1 counters onto it, milling 5, and then brings back his Cavern Horde Dragon. He then plays out a Dimir Signet, and once that's done, casts Read the Bones. He scries 2, loses 2, and draws 2 once he's done scrying. Max then passes turn. Felix plays a Death Reap ritual in its main phase, and then plays Tireless Provisioner. He then plays the Provisioner's friend, a Tireless Tracker, and goes to combat. He hits Max for 4 with Sméagol, and passes. During Felix's end step, I cast Roiling Regrowth, sacrificing a land to find 2 basics. My turn has me playing a Polluted Delta, and I remember to gain my 3 colorless mana from Mana Drain in my main phase. I then crack the Delta to go and find an island, and use some of the colorless to help cast a Migration Path to find 2 more basics. I then tap a lot of mana, including Lucea Kane to get her trigger, to cast an Altered Ego, putting 14 into the X. Because of Lucea Kane's trigger, I get a second copy of the spell, and I have the Egos come in as a copy of the Cavern Horde Dragon. They've got Haste and Trample, and I swing one of them at Seb, and one of them at Max. Max uses Pongify on the one going at him, while Seb just takes the hit for 14. I then pass, and during my end step, Felix gets to draw a card from the Death Reap ritual because a creature died. Seb draws their 2 and plays a forest. They cast Nature's Lore to go and find another forest, and once that's done, play out Aetherflux Reservoir. And then a Starfield of Nyx, gaining some life from the reservoir and Sythis, not to mention drawing 2 cards. They then play out Privileged Position, gaining more life and drawing 2 more. They then cast an Enchantress's Presence, gaining even more life and drawing 2 more cards. They're not done though, as a Sigil of the Empty Throne hits the stack, gaining them even more and drawing 2 more. Seb then taps the Sanctum Weaver for what is a lot of mana at this point, and plays out Helm of the Gods, gaining more life from just the reservoir trigger. They then cast Solitary Confinement, gaining life from the reservoir and Sythis again, not to mention drawing 2 more cards. Seb then levels up Cleric class, and then plays out Mesa Enchantress, gaining more life from the reservoir. They then use their last remaining mana to gear up Sythis with a Helm. Their commander then goes at me, which I block with the Monkey token, and with nothing else, Seb passes and moves to discard. Maxim plays a Temple of the False God after drawing his 2 cards, and then activates the relic, drawing 2 and discarding 1. He doesn't have anything that'll help the table though, and just passes to Felix. Felix draws his 2, and plays a Cabal Coffers and then a Forest. He double checks the wording on Dictate, and then looks through his opponent's graveyards. Felix then activates the Cabal Coffers to make some mana, and remembers to make 2 treasures and 2 clues from the coffers and forests coming in. He then casts Rise of the Dark Realms, and steals all creatures from all graveyards. There's a lot of Enchantress-based effects, which sadly don't work super well outside of the Stetson Champion. He then pays 2 for a Bloodghast. He sacrifices it to the Carrion Feeder, and then the Uruk-hai Berserker, adding 2+1/+1 counters to it. Felix then casts Reanimate, losing 3 to bring back the Berserker, and gets tempted again. He targets me this time, and my top card is a Command Tower, which comes into play and gains him 1. He then makes a clue token and a treasure token as it comes in, and once that's done, plays Talisman of Resilience. He then moves to his end step, getting a Death Reap Ritual and a Sméagol trigger, and targets me with the Sméagol trigger. In response, Seb uses the Reservoir to nuke me into oblivion, and Felix only gets to draw a card, and we then move to Seb's turn. Seb casts Wild Growth on a land in their main phase, gaining a chunk of life and drawing a bunch more cards. They then play a Yavimaya Enchantress, gaining more life, and remember to get an Angel token from the Sigil trigger before. Magus of the Vineyard then gains them some life, and then a Trudge Garden gains them even more life, plus draws a bunch of cards. They cast Eldamri's Call, gaining 7 life, and finding Heliod Suncrowned to put to hand. They then cast Heliod, gaining 10, and drawing a bunch more cards. They're ready to close out the game at this point, casting a Chroma's Will, and since they've got their commander out, are able to get both modes. They've got enough damage from their animated enchantments at this point to kill one person, and enough life to blast the other, and Felix and Max know when they're beat, and scoop it up. Game review time. This game was 41 minutes and 54 seconds. And all things considered, it was a pretty decent game. Unfortunately, we just weren't able to draw into a way to deal with Seb in that last turn, and they were able to steal a win by having all those mana doublers, not to mention drawing like 3+ cards on every cast, plus they were gaining so much life. I love an Aetherflux Reservoir finish, and being able to kill 2 players with one is sweet. Max's Sauron deck is a Grixis Reanimator deck, and unfortunately he just didn't draw into any good bombs to bring back for cheap. As you saw, his Cavern Horde Dragon was okay, but I made it even better with my copies of it, which kinda speaks volumes to how his deck was playing out this game. Magus Lucea Kane continues to do fun stuff, which is ramp a lot and cast big silly X spells. In this case, I got Altered Ego and I got 2 copies of a massive 14/14 Cavern Horde Dragon. And seeing just how much the Dictate of Karametra sped up the game, I'm actually considering running it in Lucea Kane. I oftentimes have abundance of lands between turns, and being able to flash that out and then double my mana for the next turn just seems great. Felix's Sméagol deck I like in principle and in theory, but in practice I just don't see it doing anything. He keeps hitting only like 1 or 2 cards, which yes is a luck factor when it comes to landfall and mill, but unfortunately he just didn't get there. He even resolved to Rise of the Dark Realms, which is typically one of those kind of game-winning spells, and I think the best card he got was his Uruk-hai Berserker.
This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, Cool Stuff Inc., but it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.